Welcome back, and joining us now on the show is Claudiu Covrig of Covrig Analytics. Claudio, hi, thank you for joining in. And sugar really seems to be making headlines for sure in India, but outside India as well. I want to first of all talk about on what really bothers India at this point in time. It is also about the crop. It's about the closing versus the opening stock. How are you looking at all of these numbers?
Yes, I think the market reacted to the recent cuts in Indian production. I mean, India revised production downwards almost on a weekly basis. And then the global markets started to fear and panic that, I mean, because there were some rumors that the Indian government might stop the exports. So that was the problem, the impact on the international market. But the problem is that okay, the Indian government cannot stop these exports that were given back in January, about 1 million tons of white sugar, just because about 500,000 tons are already sold, and then it will disturb all the market players there. I mean, 100,000 tons is in the hands of traders, 200,000 tons were already sold from India, about 200,000 tons are to sell in March and in April. So then it's not easy, but market is panicking. Then, of course, was not only India, was also Brazil, where there is dry weather in March. The Brazilian real also strengthened a bit in the last 2-3 weeks. I mean, it was about 6 per dollar. Now it's about 5.6. You see, so there is kind of a bullish momentum in the sugar market, but the fact that ignited these weekly prices, I mean, the spark in prices was definitely India. And it was this national association that published over the weekend these numbers, or bullish numbers regarding the Indian crop, showing that the crop is much down on the year. Even though Maharashtra started to crush later this year, we are much behind last year's numbers. It is a bad crop in India. It is a bad sugar crop. And then now, if this year we have a bad sugar crop, there is question mark about the next season, right? I mean, we say, okay, we have seen like a 6 million tons or maybe 6.5 million tons increase in sugar production for the next season. But will it be so? If we revise down this year, shall we revise down the next year? And then the problem with the next year is the how much we consider that India might export next year, right? Because there, if production is supposed to spark next year, then we would have also bigger exports, which might not be the case. Because if this year India finishes with whatever we calculated here, stocks at about, let's say 4.4 million tons, then you cannot export next year, I don't know, 4 million tons of whites, right? So for sure, next year, probably exports will not be more than this year. Maybe, let's say, government could give 1.5 million tons of whites, but not more than that.
Also, how are you looking at the global markets then, Claudio? Because while, of course, India, as you said, every fortnight has been looking at revising lower and lower. And I'm assuming we'll get the final numbers only by the first week of April, and whether or not there's further revision onto this one. But how are you looking at the global numbers now? And is there a concern about global deficit?
Yes. Due to the revision that we did for India, now the global picture is that we go into a deficit this year. We were kind of in balance, like, or a surplus of about 80,000 tons, nothing. But then because we revised the Indian numbers this week, we are going in a deficit of about 2 million tons now for this year. Now, of course, people will say, it's not a direct impact on the trade flows, because anyhow, the sugar in India remained locked in, except this 1 million metric tons given for exports. But yes, but it doesn't sound well for the funds also, because funds now are short and then are looking to a big surplus in the next season, about 4 million tons of surplus. The problem is that the surplus next season is kind of virtual, right? Because we are only talking about estimates. And then we've seen that in practice this year, it didn't go according to the estimates. So then depends on the weather. So that's it. This big surplus next season might be at risk, right? So that's how the market looks like. And then I don't know for how long these funds will remain short. because now if the Brazilian crop doesn't confirm, and Brazil is a very big raw sugar exporter, then we have more upside momentum. But now people will switch their interest from India, which makes some kind of bullish news this week, to Brazil. And everything that will happen in Brazil will matter for the next 4, 5, 6 months.
Claudiu, you talked about on how there are concerns and India's sugar output does seem much lower than the actual is much lower than the estimates clearly, and that clearly seems to be supporting a lot of sugar companies' stocks right now. But as you spoke, there is this whole new buzz about on whether or not the government would ban these exports, stop them midway, perhaps come out with a clause or etc. You do not see that happening. I mean, as you said, with the calculation that we are looking at, it perhaps would be a difficult thing to do, or maybe the government will not look at it at all.
I think the government can analyze the possibility, but this possibility shall come mainly in April or in May. It is very hard to stop the logistics of these exports, because now all the exporters are freaking out and they will say, hey, I have to export as much as possible now because I don't know what the government will do. That's one thing. Another thing is, I don't think the government will stop anything, because anyhow, 500,000 tons you cannot touch anymore. The other 500,000 tons is very hard to touch, because in the meantime, people will contract more. Now, the thing is, probably not, will not interfere in that. But the situation then remains tight in India, because, ISMA also slashed consumption. We were working with consumption of about 28.2 million tons in India. All the remainder was either the leakage to other countries or official exports or whatever. And now we see the impact in that. And then ISMA, for example, slashed consumption to 28 million tons, okay?
Right.
But the problem is that...
So it does, Claudiu, would you say it looks like an adjustment of sorts to fit in numbers?
I don't know. We were working with 28.2 because we consider that the pipeline was very big in India. It was about 2 million tons. So then, firstly, India consumed from the pipeline. And that's why we didn't see in the sales of the mills this kind of impact.
That is a number to watch. That is a number to watch.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely. So when you look at it, Mangalam, last year we consumed 29 million tons. Just before, because the sugar is less this year, you cut the consumption to 28 million tons as well. So that is something that really seems to be bothering a lot of people.
Most definitely keep an eye out on that. In fact, when you were having that conversation, Balrampur Chini actually moved to the high point of trade, up around 10% right now. We started this segment with the mid-cap index being up around 1,100 points. Now it's up 1,200 points. So the market continues to do well. Your portfolio seeming a lot better as well. Take a short break, come back. On the other side, you have business lunch. Hopefully less sugar in that lunch as well. But we'll take all the market updates on business lunch.